Entrepreneurs, is your website costing your business money? Well, today on Solucru Talks, we're going to discuss some of the most important things that small businesses commonly overlook when they're focusing on their websites. Welcome to Solucru Talks. I'm Jonathan Sellers, CEO of Solucru. I'm here with our Director of Digital Marketing, Seton Tihart. And today we are going to dig into the top 5 areas that we see often overlooked for small businesses and small business websites. We want to give you some tips and ideas around simple fixes for some of these. So Seton, let's get started. I know one of the big things that it's always a debate, but it's really something that has a drastic impact in the effectiveness of a website, and that's site speed.
Oh, absolutely. So the reality is if your website loads slowly, if there's any delay in a page loading, you immediately lose users. A lot of people don't realize this. They think their site speed is performing adequately. But if you do run what we call a site speed test, a page insight test, quite often you'll see majority of small business owners, their websites do not perform adequately. And ultimately what that means is users, they get to your website, they immediately leave and they go to a competitor's site that actually is responsive.
Yeah, and so what do we do if that's the reality for our website? Is it how the website was built? Is it the hosting? I know a lot of times people are like, oh, we need better hosting. So
the reality is most of the global hosting packages you will find online should be adequate. What it really comes down to is optimizing the way the website is built. That is optimizing the code, optimizing the CSS. Now, I know these are some technical terms, but essentially it is optimizing everything on the back end to improve site performance.
Is this technology doing this? Is this manually manipulating everything, changing code, or what is the approach?
Well, for efficiency purposes at Solucru, we use a technology stack that does a lot of these things automatically. We do have web developers that set the parameters of what needs to happen, because we also have to be careful. There's a realm of over optimization. So if you don't have a web developer that knows what they're doing, you can over optimize a site. That means, for example, a lot of the back-end code will break. So it means on the front end, what a user sees will be broken. So we do use technology, but we always have a developer driving that.
So if I'm a small business owner and my website is loading slowly, can every website be fixed, or are some websites too far gone?
That I would say is almost like a little bit of a loaded question. There are websites that could be too far gone. And the reality of that is, if it was really poorly developed, it's developed on a bad framework, it's developed with really poor practices. At that point, it's not that it can't be salvaged, but you would probably spend more time trying to salvage and making something good out of something bad versus just doing a rebuild.
Okay, gotcha. The second challenge that we see so often in small business websites that really affects the results, really affects the overall performance. And, I'm going to use the industry terminology, which is UI, UX. What are some of the things that you see most often that are gaps or just areas for improvement?
A lot of people will put a lot of filler, a lot of fluff, a lot of unnecessary stuff in their main navigation that just causes confusion. Ideally, your main navigation on the website should really be the core pages, the most important pages of your website that you want to take a user to. You can have a lot of other internal links, you can have pages that direct to other pages, but that main navigation should really be your core service offerings and your core service pages.
I think of another issue on a different part of this issue, and that is where someone doesn't really have that so their goal as the business is like, I want a lead, I want somebody to contact my business, give me their information, but then they don't have a form.
That's a massive problem we see all the time. So as per your example, if my goal is to have somebody contacting me via a contact form, I have to make that contact form as easy to find as possible. Now, in technical terms, we normally speak of above the fold, and essentially on a website, above the fold would be when someone lands on a web page, what they can immediately see is above the fold. The minute they have to scroll, that would be below the fold. So we want a contact form to be above the fold. If that is your primary means of communication, you want that above the fold, because you want people to, the minute they land on your website or a landing page or any particular service page, you want to immediately highlight, yeah, you can reach out to us. Here's the means to do so.
Yeah, and these are things that this is really part of the consultation of building a website. So anybody who's building a website, or if you're building it yourself, right, you should be always asking, what are we trying to accomplish? And then, are the things we're doing helping us to achieve those things, or are there gaps, right? But I would say that leads us to the number 3 thing that we commonly see that are overlooked or less optimized on small business websites, and that are I'm not sure how to say that correctly, but that's the forms themselves. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, but I think people either go too far in the wrong direction or too far in the opposite direction with what they're asking for information or how they're collecting information, how the form looks. I think there's a lot of form issues. So maybe if you want to jump into the deep end of this one.
You want a form that has some friction. And what we mean by friction is you do want some barriers to entry. Now, there's some agencies that will advise against this. They will say, no, the more friction you have, the less likely you have that somebody's going to submit a contact form. The reality is, if you have, so this is very common, we see this all the time. You'll see a form where somebody's only requesting a name, a email address, and then just their message, why are you contacting us? The reality of a form that is so simple is you are ultimately going to get a lot of spam submissions. It's just the reality of it. There's a lot of bots online. It's an ever-growing problem. Google is struggling with it. Microsoft, all the big industry leaders in, your different search platforms, they are all struggling with assisting with preventing spam submissions and bot submissions. So when a form has no friction, ultimately that's what you're going to get. There's also the other path of that is that it's not just spam submissions, but ultimately, depending on what your reason for them contacting you is, you could get a lot of low quality leads. You could get a lot of tire kickers because you aren't doing any form of pre-qualification. Now, if it's just a general contact form where somebody's reaching out to you, that could be fine. But if it's an actual lead form where the goal is I'm trying to establish whether you're a good fit for my business, then that doesn't work because you're doing no pre-qualification, you're not setting any barriers. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you don't want to make a form so convoluted or so difficult to complete that I feel like I'm signing my woe.
So I would say going to the 4th thing that we see, it kind of ties into what we just talked about in a couple different ways around small business websites that don't, we see this often overlooked or it's not optimized correctly, would be security. And this could be as simple as, I still regularly will try to visit small business websites who do not have an SSL certificate, which is insane to me.
Well, I do want to first say I agree with you. The SSL one in this day and age is unacceptable. It's crazy. You setting your business up for failure. Very early on it was fine. Many years ago, almost no websites had an SSL unless you were doing some form of online transaction. Today, it's the standard. Another one is just firewalls. There's a lot of small business websites. They don't even understand what a firewall is. And the reality of it is, I get it. I understand that doesn't make sense. It's not a factor to you when you think of the website. But the reality is a firewall actually helps prevent unauthorized access to your website, because it's constantly monitoring when people are trying to log into your back end, and it's inevitably blocking them from doing so because it sees the wrong passwords they are using, and it ultimately blocks them.
Well, so for the fifth thing that we see, it actually combines two of the things we've already talked about. It's going to have some UI UX implications. It's also going to have some security implications. And so that is for our e-commerce friends who have poor or shortcut driven checkout processes. What I mean by that is they are using shady looking checkout processes, for lack of a better word. That's one part of it. The other part of it is they use some out-of-the-box process that is almost impossible to make the purchase.
This is the one place where ultimately, they're all competitive. They're all competitively priced, but it's the one place you don't want to take a shortcut. There's a lot of regulations worldwide around payments and how they should be processed. So by using a industry leader payment processor, you know that you are doing the right thing. You're doing it according to the law. You're not going to get into trouble for that. The other thing is, because they are reputable, you gain a lot of trust right off the bat if you are, signposting, hey, our payments are processed through Stripe. Our payments are processed through PayPal, because they have their following. They are recognized internationally. So immediately people are like, yes, I know this. Every site I use uses this. I trust it. I know it. So therefore you get a lot of trust off of that. I do, however, still agree. You ultimately don't want to be sending, the checkout page off of your website. You don't want to go to the third-party platform. Ideally, you want a clean design checkout page that uses that payment processor, but on your website. And again, the design's very important. We have a lot of people that do not look at that design. They use a generic out of the box. For example, if it's WordPress, they just use a generic WordPress checkout page. That immediately does raise red flags for people. They like, wait a minute, this doesn't look legit. The website looked amazing, and now I get to this checkout page and it looks bad. It looks as if something's going on here. So you want a checkout page that really matches your brand, matches that aesthetic, and it really got to look good. And that also ties into performance, because the checkout page is normally where we see sales being lost due to poor performance. If that page is taking too long to load, too long to process that payment, ultimately people leave. They basically interrupt the payment from actually taking place, or sometimes they just leave before they even start the payment. So look and feel on that page is very important. And having a good, reputable payment processor is absolutely important. If you have any kind of custom build, there are websites that do that. You are allowed to do that as long as you adhere to the regulations about payment processing, because you never want any card information displayed in your code. You never want to be storing card information. There are industry standard regulations that have to be adhered to. And that is often where small businesses fail. They'll have a developer that develops some kind of custom solution for them. But what they don't realize is all that credit card information is being displayed in the code, which means anybody that is looking at that website could actually steal credit card information when a payment is being processed. So that's a big one. That is why I would always advocate, unless you have a really professional dev team that knows what they're doing, that has experience in payment processing, I would advocate use one of the providers, one of the industry leading providers.
Well, there we have it. That's the top 5 small business website oversights, things that we see commonly when we're talking with potential clients and our clients here at Solucru that they've experienced in the past or that they're dealing with currently, and they're trying to get these things sorted. If that's you, talk to us. We can help you improve in these areas. It's just a matter of go to our website, reach out through the forms, and one of our team members will get in touch and figure out how we can solve your problem. I want to thank Seaton for joining me today. It was, I think it was a good conversation, and lots of insight around, these issues that, like I said, we see over and over. So please like and subscribe. If you're listening to this now, obviously this was valuable information for you, and please like and subscribe here on YouTube. We post Solucru Talks once a week, and we cover a variety of topics around digital marketing. We hope to see you next time.